Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the showdown slate for NFL for Thursday Night Football. NFL season is slowly approaching. The season kicks off Thursday night with the Chiefs and Texans playing on Thursday Night Football. Draftkings is running huge tournaments for these showdown slates. And I normally, don't play Showdown. If you've been following me for NBA, over the past few months, I don't really make Showdown videos, for NBA or for MLB. But NFL is one sport where I do enjoy playing Showdown. There's big tournaments. I mean, it's just a very fun sport to, play in general. NFL is my favorite sport by far to play and to sweat. I do enjoy these Showdown slates. I don't play too heavy on these. I really, kind of play low volume, but they're just really fun to play, when you can have something to sweat while you watch the game. I mean, I pretty much watch every, primetime game. I'm always tuned in. Football is one sport that I absolutely love watching, along with basketball. I still watch baseball as well, but, baseball is one of those sports. Really can't watch it. Like, if I don't have, money in the game, baseball is just not a sport I enjoy, watching without money in the game. But love watching football, love watching basketball. I'll be tuned into this game. I'll have some action down for this shutdown slate. We'll talk through this slate, kind of top to bottom. We'll hit on all the playable guys. This video is probably going to be pretty short because it's only one game to talk about. The player pool is pretty small. We do have a really big player pool, though. That's because, a lot of these guys are going to be inactive anyway. So, a lot of these $300, $600 guys are not going to be playable to begin with. I'll just touch on the guys that, we can actually put into our lineups that we can actually play. We'll take a look at the totals as well for this game. We'll talk about, who I think wins this game, how I think it plays out, the guys I like from both sides. Just before we do get started, though, guys, as always, would appreciate it if you would hit that like button down below. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel as well. If you are new here, I will be uploading Showdown videos for every Thursday night game and for every Monday night game. I have not decided yet if I'm going to make them for Sunday night. Because, Sunday night, I typically don't play the Sunday night showdown because, I'm kind of sweating my lineups for the main slate. I don't really, have time to make lineups for the Sunday night game. But I definitely play the Monday night showdowns and the Thursday night showdowns. So I will have videos up for those. I'll be making a ton of NFL content, 3 to 4 videos a week. I'll still have stuff up for the main slate as well. My first look video for the week 1 main slate did go up on Monday. So if you want to check that out, you can. I will be uploading my full breakdown for the main slate, my full picks video. That'll probably go up either Thursday or Friday. So be sure to check that out as well. And also, one more thing, if you do want to get more content from me, I did make a pretty big change to the Patreon. I should have pulled this up for you guys to show you, but I'm making a new change where all my content on Patreon will now be available, through one tier. If you were subscribed to the Patreon before, I had different tiers. I had a starter pack for each sport. I had an advanced package for each sport. I got rid of all that. I'm just making one tier on Patreon that you can subscribe to that gives you access to everything. All my NFL content, all my NBA content, all my MLB content, the 3 main sports that I cover on Patreon. You can get access to everything. It's going to be $20 a month, which is lower than what it was before. Normally, to get access to everything on Patreon, it was $35, but I decided to lower the price. I'm going to be putting a ton of content up on Patreon. With all these sports going on, I want to, make my content available for everyone so that everyone can view it. So if you do want to check out the Patreon, it is linked down below. You can see all that I have to offer over there, what I provide for each sport. I do give core plays for, NFL, for NBA, for MLB. I'm posting articles for both NBA and MLB Monday through Friday. And I will have an article up for the main slate for NFL. That'll go up on Saturday. I'll have core plays for NFL as well. I do have a ton of content coming out on Patreon, and I did make some changes to the, to the payment options there. Should make it a lot cheaper and a lot easier for people to subscribe. So if you want to check that out, it is linked down below in the description. But yeah, guys, let's go ahead and break down this showdown slate. I know I kind of rambled for a bit, but let's start off at the top. We'll just kind of, start off at the top of the player pool and then work our way down. I guess we'll start with the 2 quarterbacks who are the most expensive options. We got Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. I mean, both guys are great plays. It's a showdown slate. These are 2 of the top projected players on the slate, just in my opinion. Both guys were great for fantasy last season. Both averaged just over 24 Draftkings points per game. Mahomes, we know, had a ridiculous season last year. I mean, just giving you insane numbers every game. I mean, pretty much his worst game last season was 7 DK points against the Broncos, and I'm not exactly sure. That might have been a game he got hurt. I honestly can't remember. But like most games, you're getting anywhere from 20 to 30 DK points from Mahomes. We know he has massive upside. This is a very, project to be at least a very high scoring game. Right now, it's got a 54.5 total with the Chiefs favored by 9. Even though the Chiefs are heavy favorites here, we know Mahomes is going to throw the ball probably 35 to 40 times. I definitely like him at 12,600. If you want to play him, it's going to be tough to do so at captain because you're really going to be thin on salary. Mahomes has a ton of upside, but I like some of the other guys we have that are cheaper. They give you just as much upside, and they're coming in at a really big discount. Like, for example, if you just plug Mahomes in at captain, you're only left with 62.20 remaining per player, which you can make work, but there's not a lot of great cheap options that I'm in love with on this Showdown slate. We'll talk about some that I do like. I feel like I'm mainly going to be playing Mahomes, in my flex spot rather than a captain. Rarely do I play quarterbacks and captain. I usually try and play running backs and receivers because you usually see running backs and receivers, in the winning GPP lineup. They're usually the captains. But I do like both Mahomes and Watson a lot. I think it all comes down to how you construct your lineup on, who you play. If you want to play both guys, go ahead by all means. Like, for example, if you play a Houston receiver in your captain spot, you probably want to get Watson in there. If you play someone like Kelsey or Hill in the captain spot, then you probably want to get Mahomes in there. You do want to correlate your lineups correctly. That's one very important thing you need to do on these Showdown slates, and we will talk about that towards the end of the video. We'll take a look at different lineup builds, how we should be constructing our lineups for this Showdown slate. But Mahomes, Watson, both great plays. Both, they're two of the top plays on the slate. I'm really not going out on a limb there. I do want to talk about some of the receivers, though, because I think this is where, we have some captain options, in my opinion. I think this is where we can find high upside guys that give us a little bit of a discount off of Mahomes and off of Watson. So we'll start off with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, just an incredibly high upside player, can easily be the highest scoring player on this Showdown slate. We know Hill has insane speed, can burn any corner. He's not going to get like a huge amount of volume. Like, you're not going to see Tyreek Hill. I know he did get 16 targets in the Super Bowl, but normally Tyreek Hill's like giving you probably 7-8 targets. He's not a guy like, like Devonta Adams, these guys that are getting 12, 13 targets every week. That's not the case with Tyreek Hill, but still gets, 6 to 8 targets most weeks. We know he has a ton of upside, big playability. Is so fast, he can just take a deep ball to the house and really just pay off his price tag in one play. I do like Tyreek Hill a lot. I think he is a really good captain option here. If you go with him over Mahomes, that does save you some salary. You're going to need to save some salary because this is a slate where we do have a lot of great options at the top. You want to try and get a good amount of these guys into your lineups. You don't want to have to play too many cheap guys. So, getting 2 or 3 of, from like Will Fuller up, getting 2 or 3 of these guys into your lineups, I think, is probably the way you want to go. I do really like Tyreek Hill. He's probably one of my favorite captain plays. Travis Kelce I like a lot as well. He is coming in cheaper than Tyreek Hill. I know he had a huge game against the Texans. I believe it was during the regular season, or it might have been in the first round of the playoffs. I think that was the first round of the playoffs. He had 10 catches, 134 yards, 44 Draftkings points, 3 touchdowns. We know Travis Kelce has insane upside. I think you do get more upside, though, from Tyreek Hill, so I probably would rather go to Hill if I can find the salary. But on a Showdown slate, Travis Kelce is a great option as well. Definitely a guy you could look to. I think I just would probably rather get to Hill. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think he's going to be a pretty popular option here. He's kind of like the talk of the town in terms of fantasy this year. A lot of people were taking him in the first round of drafts. He's expected to be the number one guy. Damian Williams opted out. He's not going to be playing, so it's pretty clear that CEH is going to be their number one running back. They still do have some other guys I can turn to. I'm pretty sure. I think his name is I forgot which one it is. I think it's Darrell Williams. DeAndre Washington, I'm pretty sure he's not even with the team, or he didn't make the practice squad, or he didn't make the final roster, so we don't have to worry about him. But they do have, I believe it is Darrell Williams that's going to be the backup behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It seems pretty clear though that CEH is going to be the number one running back. This guy showed a lot of pass catching ability when he was at LSU. Is a great pass catching back in this explosive Chiefs offense. He's going to have a ton of opportunity. We saw what Damian Williams was able to do, in the playoffs when he was getting a full workload. He was putting up huge games. I definitely like CEH. Will he get 20 touches in week 1? I'm not exactly sure there. I think he's most likely going to get probably 12 to 14 touches. I don't know if they're just going to, give him a bell cow role in the first week of the season, But I think as the season progresses, we're going to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire probably get around 20 touches a week, be a workhorse back, be a guy that we're going to be targeting in DFS a lot. So I definitely have some interest in him here. I think he is a really good option. Will Fuller, though, is probably my favorite play overall. I'm incredibly high on Will Fuller this season. I think he has a ton of upside to be maybe a top 10 receiver, like talking about fantasy, fantasy scoring, maybe a top 10, top 20 receiver. Like without DeAndre Hopkins, with Hopkins on the Cardinals now, I mean, Will Fuller just has all the opportunity in the world. When this guy is healthy, like he has the upside to be a very high, high upside receiver for DFS. We saw huge games from him last year. He obviously had that massive game, one of the best games we've ever seen in a long time against the Falcons in Week 5, where he put up 14 catches, 217 yards, 3 touchdowns, 56 Draftkings points. I mean, Will Fuller should get all the looks. I mean, he's going to be their number one receiver. He's going to garner a lot of attention from the defense, but Will Fuller is a guy that can get open. He's incredibly fast. He's a good route runner. When he's healthy, he is a very good receiver, and going into the season, he seems healthy. He had all off season to rest up, so I really like Will Fuller. He's probably one of my favorite captain plays overall, especially because he's cheaper than all the other guys we talked about. Putting Will Fuller in the captain spot, is going to allow you to maybe get in an extra stud. We'll definitely look at some lineup builds with Will Fuller at captain. I like him a ton at 8K. One of my favorite plays on the slate. I'm incredibly high on him this season. I think he is going to be a total beast for fantasy. We're going to see him when he's on like main slates. I think Will Fuller will probably get priced up to around, he's going to be around 6 to 7K every week when he's on the main slate. Might even see him, get above 7K. We're going to see some big Will Fuller games this year. I'm really high on him, and I think this is a good spot against a Chiefs team that has a good defense or a solid defense overall, but this is going to be a very high-scoring game. This should be a shootout. The Texans are expected to be playing from behind. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. Really like Will Fuller here. David Johnson as well, how is David Johnson going to adapt with his new team? He showed some upside last season towards the end of the year with the Cardinals. He actually had some big games for DFS when he was getting, good volume. It was more towards the beginning of the season. He kind of tailed off at the end of the season. But when the start of the season, last year with the Cardinals, he showed when he gets around 15 to 20 touches, he can be productive for fantasy. Obviously, a couple years back, David Johnson was just a complete stud for DFS, was a guy that you just kind of played every week. He's tailed off a little bit since then, but this is still a high upside back. He can catch passes. If he gets the amount of volume that, maybe he saw a couple years back, he's going to be very good for, DFS. Obviously, the Texans are high on him if they, traded away DeAndre Hopkins for him. I expect him to be the number one back and to get a large majority of the volume. Between him and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think I'd probably rather get up to CEH if I can, but David Johnson is definitely in play at 7,600. Even Brandon Cooks, another guy that I'm pretty high on this season, someone that I think is going to have a breakout season after he was pretty disappointing last year. He's going to have all the opportunity in the world now, with Deshaun Watson, a really good quarterback. He's going to be their number 2 receiver behind Will Fuller. I like Cooks a lot. At 7,200, he is expensive. I didn't expect him to be this expensive when I looked at the slate for the first time. He is kind of closely priced to David Johnson. But I definitely like Cooks as well. He's for sure going to be in my player pool on this Showdown slate. Definitely viable. And then we kind of got down to the cheapies, 6K and below. Once you get past the backup quarterbacks who you're not going to be playing, then you got guys like Sammy Watkins, Mecole Hardman, Duke Johnson. Maybe he gets some volume. Kenny Stills, Randall Cobb, these kind of guys. So for value, Sammy Watkins could be viable for sure. He did show some upside last year, especially towards the end of the season and in the playoffs when he was getting, anywhere from 6 to 10 targets. He can put up big games. He's 5,800. He does give you some value. He's going to be the number 2 receiver behind, or technically the number 3 receiver behind, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Watkins at 5,800 is for sure in play for me. I definitely like him as a value. Mecole Hardman as well. You could look to a lot of big playability. They've said that, they're going to make sure to give Mecole Hardman opportunity this year. He was a guy that, they used a lot as a return man last year, but offensively in the offense as a receiver, he didn't really get a ton of volume. 1 target, 4 targets. He did a lot of damage as a return man. He's got a ton of speed, but they didn't really use him much as a receiver, especially towards the end of the year. I think that will change this season. We're going to see Mecole Hardman have a pretty decent role in the offense. At 5,200, they did kind of price him up. Honestly, I feel a little bit better about Sammy Watkins at 5,800. So I probably would rather go to Watkins. Duke Johnson, it's hard to trust him as a backup running back. What's his workload going to be like? Will he just be used on pass downs? Probably won't get there. Kenny Stills, I have some interest in. Going to be the number 3 receiver. Should get a little bit more volume this season. Without DeAndre Hopkins, a very, high volume guy, a guy that gets around 30% of the targets. Stills should get some opportunity behind Will Fuller and behind Brandon Cooks. So he's for sure in play for me at 4,600 as a cheap option. Darren Fells, 4,400, you could look to, as the tight end or as the starting tight end for the Texans. Probably would rather get to Stills though. I think Stills, just gives you a little bit more upside. Fells didn't show a ton of upside last season. Like most games, he's getting anywhere from 3 to 5 targets. He does get looks in the red zone. He does have a lot of touchdown equity. But still, I think I'd probably rather go to Kenny Stills. Randall Cobb as the slot man, could be viable here as well. The Texans still do have 4 receivers they can use. I'm pretty sure their 2 outside receivers are going to be Fuller and Cooks, and then Randall Cobb's going to operate out of the slot. Cobb showed some upside last season with Dallas. He didn't have the best season overall, but you saw him put up some big games. He's still a pretty solid receiver. He can definitely, he runs those slant routes, those quick routes. He can get anywhere. If he gets 6 to 8 targets, 4,200 as a value receiver, as a value play overall, I definitely have interest in Randall Cobb. I'm for sure going to play these guys like Cobb, Stills, Watkins, maybe even Fells. I'm for sure going to play all these guys over, the kickers and the defenses. I said it a lot last season. I don't really enjoy, or I wouldn't say I don't enjoy, but I don't really like putting kickers and defenses into my lineup. I just think they don't give you a ton of upside, especially in a game like this where you expect a lot of points to be scored. Maybe there will be some turnovers, but I don't think I really want to play either defense. Mahomes doesn't really turn the ball over. Watson doesn't really make too many mistakes. The kickers, they're probably going to give you anywhere from 7 to 11 points, which is fine, but I feel like you have more upside from a receiver, that could maybe get 15 to 20, like Stills, like Cobb, even Fells, if he's able to, catch a touchdown or something. You can always play the kickers. You could always play the defenses, but I tend to shy away from them. If I had to choose one, it would be the kickers over the defenses. I think this is a game, where kickers are viable because it should be high scoring. They should get a lot of, opportunities, whether that's making PATs or maybe kicking field goals. In terms of which kicker do you play, it's just a coin flip. Just play whatever one fits into your lineup. If you have a lot of KC guys or, if you have a lot of Houston guys, maybe just play the kicker, kind of stack them up with your team because, if Houston scores a lot of points, if KC scores a lot of points, that is going to help the kicker overall. And then punt plays here, I don't see much down here that I really want to go to. Maybe Demarcus Robinson could be viable. Who knows how much volume he gets, how many snaps he plays. He didn't play a ton of snaps each game last season, didn't get really many targets. You could get lucky and he maybe catches a touchdown or something in the red zone. But honestly, he's still behind Hardman. He's still behind Watkins, Hill, Kelsey. He's the 5th option, 6th option on this team. It's just a really risky play. Ricky Seals-Jones, I doubt I want to go to him. He's still behind Darren Fells. I don't really want to play any of the backup running backs. So that's probably it for me in terms of value. None of these guys down here I really want to go to. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for the for the player pool for this Showdown slate. Now talking about roster construction, how we could look to build a lineup. I mentioned it earlier. I really like Will Fuller in this spot. I'm really high on him this season. I definitely want to see how we can build out a lineup with Fuller as our captain. If we are playing a Houston receiver as our captain, then you probably want to get Deshaun Watson in there. Because if we're saying that Fuller's going to have a big game, that probably means Deshaun Watson is going to put up a solid game as well. You always want to stack your lineups correctly on these Showdown slates. For example, if I had Tyreek Hill as a captain, I'd want to get Mahomes in there. If I had Kelsey as a captain, I'd want to get Mahomes in there. But if you go with Fuller at captain, pair him with Watson, that still leaves you $65.50 remaining per player. So we can probably maybe start off with some value here. What kind of cheap plays can we get to? Maybe these cheap receivers like Randall Cobb, Kenny Stills, Hardman, Watkins, these guys, which ones could we play? Randall Cobb I actually think has the chance to put up a pretty solid year this year as their slot receiver. 4,200, he's definitely going to be a value guy that I probably look to in some lineups. So we'll plug him in at 4,200, and now we're up to 733 or 7,333 remaining per player. So we got some salary to work with. We got 3 Houston guys in there, so maybe we want to get some exposure to the KC side. We could maybe plug in Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 8,800. Maybe we could plug in one of Kelsey or Hill. If we put Mahomes in there, yeah, that only leaves us 600 remaining, so we're probably not going to be able to do that. If we plug in Hill, though, that leaves us 2,800 remaining. So maybe we could play the Texans defense, but I honestly don't love that build. So let's put Kelsey in, see what that leaves us. That leaves us 4K remaining. I guess you could play a kicker then in that scenario. You could go with one of the kickers, whether it's Bucker or Fairbairn. I mean, whichever kicker fits, honestly. I think if I'm playing Houston guys and I'm expecting them to put up big games, I'm expecting them to score points, and I might just want to get the Houston kicker in there. So that is a lineup build that you could do right there. That's something I do like quite a bit. You still got $400 remaining per player, or $400 remaining in salary that you could use. I do like to leave a lot of salary on the table for these showdown slates. Because it's a one-game slate, you're going to see a lot of lineups be duplicated. The best way to not have someone else have your lineup is to leave, maybe $1,000, $2,000 on the table. If you want to try and take down a first-place prize, in one of these big tournaments, you're going to have to leave salary on the table. If you want to be the only one that has your lineup, you could still win first place in these tournaments, sharing the prize pool, but obviously, winning it solo is the big thing. That's what you're trying to do. So leave some salary on the table. Don't be afraid to leave $1,000, $2,000, something you normally wouldn't do on a main slate. You can definitely do that on a showdown slate. So that is a build that you could do that I do like quite a bit. Obviously, you don't have to plug in, Houston or KC guys, though. You could go with someone like David Johnson here. You got a lot of exposure to Houston, which is a bit scary. But, if you plug in Johnson, that leaves you enough to maybe play McCole Hardman. So that's another build that you could do. For me, I like to find maybe a couple guys, 2 or 3 guys that I like, play them in a lot of lineups, and then just kind of mix and match the rest. These showdown slates, they're kind of like lotteries. You just kind of have to get lucky building out your lineup the right way. I do recommend, rather than playing like one lineup in a $10 contest, I would recommend maybe playing 10 lineups in a $1 contest. Yeah, I would want to try and get like as many lineups into these slates as I can, just have as many possible opportunities to win, rather than putting all your money on one lineup, because it is kind of risky on a showdown slate. But these are still incredibly fun to play. I love making videos for the showdown slates. I love talking through this stuff with you guys. Talking football is something I just love to do. So I'm really excited for this Thursday night game. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. That's just how we're going to do the videos this year, like how I'm going to record them. We'll just kind of break through the player pool like we always do. Talk through the positions, or talk through the player pool from top to bottom. Who I like at captain, who you should be pairing with your guys, how you should be constructing your lineup. That's pretty much how these showdown videos are going to go. If you guys do have any feedback, if you think there's maybe something that I can improve on in these videos, feel free to leave any comments down below. I always read, all the comments. I'm replying to every comment, whether it's good or bad. Constructive criticism, I'm all for it. If you want to leave good comments, bad comments, I'll read it down below. I'll look into it. So definitely leave some comments down below. Let me know how I can improve the videos, maybe make these showdown videos a little bit more enjoyable to watch. I hope you guys did enjoy, though. I do appreciate you watching. Hit that like button before we get out of here. Hit the subscribe button as well. If you haven't yet, you can check out all my Patreon content as well. That is linked down below in the description. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I did make a change to the Patreon. I'm allowing all Patreon members to access all my content for one pretty low price of $20 per month. That gives you all my NFL content, all my NBA content, and all my MLB content on Patreon. So definitely check out the Patreon link down below. See all that I have to offer. And I think that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.